George Flies South by Simon James. The leaves on the trees were turning brown. Winter was coming. Lots of birds were headed south. It was time for George to learn to fly. "Are you ready, George?" said his mom. "Not quite," said George. "I might fall. I think I like my nest best." "Will you get some worms, Mom?" "I'll stay here." While George waited, a strong gust of wind swept through the park. It tore through the branches, scattering the leaves everywhere. George's nest wobbled and lifted into the air. "Look, Mom," said George. "Look at me. I'm flying. Whee!" But George's mom was too far away. She couldn't hear him calling. When she flew back, George and his nest were gone. "George, George," she cried. "Where are you?" "I'm here, Mom," called George. "I flew down in my nest." Then, without warning, George and his nest were on the move again. "Am I going south, Mom?" asked George. "Hold on," shouted his mom. "I'm coming." But George couldn't hold on, and his nest took off into the air. "Look at me, Mom. Look at me," said George. "I'm flying again." "You can't stay here, George," said his mom. "You've got to leave your nest. Try to flap your wings." George tried. "Try harder." "What are we going to do, Mom?" Finally, the boat stopped. George was lifted. Up, up, up into the air. "Don't move, George," said his mom. George looked down. He was glad he still had his nest. "Don't worry," said his mom. "We'll try again tomorrow." George curled up and fell fast asleep. The next morning, George woke with a start. "Look out, George," shouted his mom. Crack! The cat landed, and George's nest began to fall. "Don't worry, Mom, I'm all right," shouted George. Down, down, down he fell. Twig by twig, the nest fell apart, until only George was left. "Mom," cried George, "I've lost my nest." "George, you have to flap your wings," shouted his mom. "Now, it's time." George tried really hard. "You can do it," said his mom. "I'm trying," said George, and with a deep breath and a huge beat of his wings, George flew. "I knew you could do it, George," said his mom. "I'm ready to fly south now," said George. "Let's go. I hope there's lots of worms."